A mouth-watering collection of rally cars were put through their paces around the tarmac tracks of the agricultural showground. Veteran co-driver Tony Mason was on hand to add colour to the sights and the sounds.
This isn't a real competition where they're all racing against the clock. It's a demonstration by this slowly sideways organisation of people, enthusiasts that collect lots of lovely classic rally cars. And they're driving hard, and after the first run through you notice they're all going a little bit quicker, but they're not driving fast enough to do any real serious damage. And there are some very, very great drivers here as well. You know, a lot of the owners are driving, but we've also got the very first world champion, 1979 world champion Björn Voldergaard, splendid guy, hugely successful, won 16 rallies outright in the World Championship and drove just everything. And he's here and he's just loving it. He's driving a Fiat here today.
It's good fun. It's refresh your memories from the old days, you know, when you did the RAC rally.
Absolutely, and we saw you going into flag over there, exploring the limits of the course.
You know, it's too narrow, so I thought I used the grass a little bit.
And how is the Fiat performing for you today?
It's a nice car to drive, because I like the concept of an engine in the front and the rear-wheel drive, because then you can play a little bit.
The Fiat was... It was like the forerunner to the Escort in a way, because that came in and it was a very nice compact car with big wide wheels and a 2-litre engine and so on. It was a very successful car, and it won events with Marco LN and people of that calibre driving the Thousand Lakes. All the big classic rallies were won, and the Escort was coming in at that time, and the two were very much on a par, and the Escort then went on to become the most successful rally car of all time in many people's view. But the Fiat was a superb car, and it was had a lot of success, very well designed, well balanced, well built. And then of course the Italian group decided that they wouldn't rally Fiats anymore. Well, they'll just rally Lancias, so they then started to develop the Lancias, the all-conquering Lancias. The Fiat sort of faded a bit, really. People forgot about Fiats then, but they were a very great classic car, and it's lovely. There are two of them here today.
You drove a Porsche 911. That's not really a rally car.
So you think, but it was the best car of that time. I mean, Porsche was the first car I drove. That was 1968-69, and it was a great car.
Porsche cars were very successful rally cars, or could have been. They did win some major events, the Monte Carlo and so on, and Björn and people drove them, but they never really took rallying totally seriously, because they had all these other disciplines where they were racing in all the different categories. The handling of the Porsche was very, very good. It was a super rally car. They used to lift the suspension up very much indeed, particularly for the rough rallies like the African rallies and so on, but on the mixture of snow and ice and so on the Monte Carlo rally and so on, that wonderful grip from those big rear wheels and so on, it took some driving. I mean, you needed drivers of the calibre of Voldergaard to handle them, but they were a very, very good rally car, and it's fantastic to see them here. But the problem is that, again, you know, they've slightly faded from history and they're not thought of as being great rally cars, but my goodness, they were.
This is the car I drove in, the Forest car I drove in 1985 to win the British Championship. And of course the tarmac car is here as well. Kerry Michael owns both of them. And it's great memories. We even found a packet of Mike Broad's fags in the door pocket.
Yeah, Russell is a great long-time friend of us all. He's very popular. He was very popular British driver, came through in the 70s. He was developed from the club rallying area, and he went into the Ford Mexico Championships and things of that sort, and he was a really very competent driver. He was just on the fringe of the works team, and then he's driven everything, by the way, Ford and Vauxhall and Opel, and he won the British Championship twice. So he's a very, very good driver. He came second on the RAC rally twice. He won the New Zealand rally, and he was tremendously popular. He's a Midlander, so he's very popular here today UK, of course, and he was a Midland driver and had a very big British following, and was very, very successful and drove a phenomenal amount of events ever since the very first little club rally he went on, driving his mother's Austin Westminster, which is a rather amazing thing. But he actually was a top-class driver, was involved with the works teams with the Vauxhall, Opel, Sunbeam, and with Ford, and did win a tremendous amount, and second, 2 British championships when the British Championship was a very, very competitive thing.
The Manta is sort of great because for 2 years Jimmy McRae and myself were in the same team in identical cars, and the intensity of the competition for those 2 years, Jimmy winning the championship in 84, I won it in 85, was just absolutely great, and lots and lots of fans remember that era with a lot of fondness.
So you must have a lot of wonderful memories from that time as well.
Yes, and the memories are the intensity of the competition, because the British Championship was probably well ahead of the World Championship in terms of the people competing in it. You had Harry Vatanen, Hanny Mikkola, Björn Valdegaard. Everybody came to do the British Championship, and it had a great kudos to it, and to win it as well was something special. And rallies were won and lost by very, very tiny margins then. In the year I first won the championship in 1977, there were 5 rallies where either I beat Pentti Rickler or Pentti Rickler beat me by a margin of less than 3 seconds.
England's only had one World Rally champion, Richard Burns, and his career was brutally cut short by a brain tumour that resulted sadly in his death last year. The Subaru team that he drove for in that winning year, 2001, was run by David Richards.
He'd been driving since he was very young. His father had helped him to drive in the under-17s driving club, so he'd been driving since he was very young. He'd done auto tests, he'd done other rallies, and then David Williams became his mentor and looked after him in the early days and helped him through national championships, the Peugeot series, and then finally into our team for the British Championship. And we sent him out to the Far East, then did some rallies out there. He did a very good job out there, and then came back, and he felt there wasn't a place in the team with Colin and Carlos for a period, so he went off to another team for a while, then returned to us, and by great irony he was due to return to us from Peugeot the following year after he was taken ill. All these drivers are very different in their characters. Obviously you had the sort of rather outrageous Colin McRae, and his sort of character stood out in one way, but Richard was always very professional, very committed, very dedicated to the task, and went about things in an extraordinarily methodical way. It was, he would work it all out beforehand, and if second was what was required to win a championship, he'd drive for second place, and he did it. It's a joy to work with people like that. It's some of the other drivers are extremely frustrating, but when you get a driver who actually understands what the end goal is and how to work towards it, it is, as I say, a real delight to work with someone like that.